Finding the Voices.
Talk show by Monica Iguodam.
I'm a huge fan of Finding the Voices.
You're doing a great job for Manipur.
Manipur bu prithivida masatak pa
good positive voices and make those voices more visible.
We wanted our voice to reach in all the corners of the world.
Interesting people.
Finding voices on
People from our own place.
Share positive stories and inspiring stories and bring out the good stories of Manipur.
Finding the Voices.
So what about the other books you have written?
Well, the first book I wrote was on Catholic education in Manipur. The reason why I actually did it was because in the first years when I was here in Manipur, I found many people approaching me, many parents coming to ask me to ask the Catholic schools to admit their children into the schools.
Okay.
So then I said, why are you all, pressurizing me to put children into the Catholic schools? And they said, oh, the Catholic schools are the best in Manipur and they perform and they produce the best results.
Local people.
Yes, I'm talking about Manipuris, all coming to me and asking me to admit their wards into the Catholic schools and give a word.
Because they've seen you going to church.
Yes. So then I started researching into it. Why is it that, people from all different communities in Manipur, their priority is to get into a Catholic school? And so I did a research into that. And in fact, I actually picked it up as my doctoral research thesis.
Okay.
And it was immediately published in book form. So that was my first book. And then, of course, I changed because I'm specialized in medieval Indian history. So I thought I should work on the Muslims of Manipur. So I have written a book on the Muslims of Manipur.
Okay.
Yeah, where the introduction and the preface was written by the then Minority Union Minister Salman Khurshid, who was also in Delhi University when we were studying there. So he wrote the foreword to the book. And I did work on the Muslim women of Manipur. I did a monograph for the National Commission of Women in Delhi. Yeah, and then later on I wrote a book called Women of Manipur, an Alternative Perspective, because the normal perception in Manipur is that the status of women is much higher than the rest of that of women in India. And I said to a certain extent that is true, but it contains a lot of contradictions. There's a great dichotomy between women in the public forum and women in the private domain.
Right.
Yeah. So I explored that, and that book has also been published. And then I did a project for Maulana Azad Institute of Southeast Asian Studies in Calcutta. And they also published my findings in the form of a book. And that is the impact of modernization on the tribals of Manipur. And then I took part in a number of international projects. Like one was because Manipur was chosen as one of the conflict zones by an international resilience project of Dalhousie University in Canada. So out of the 10 cities across the world that they chose for their project, one was Imphal. So I worked on that project we measured the resilience of Manipuris between the age group of 16 to 19.
Okay.
And the findings were surprising because their resilience was extremely high, despite it being a conflict situation. And I'm talking about, this is about more than 12 or 13 years ago, you know, when the conflict was at its height. Yeah, but the resilience of the teenagers was very high. Extremely high.
No, I would really love to read all your books because it's all relevant to Manipur. I know that it's a big thesis and a big book, but just to summarize for your first book, what was your finding about the choice for the Catholic school in Manipur?
Well, I think one of the reasons why people wanted to send their children to Catholic schools was because of the discipline and the values that they were inculcating in the children, you know, giving them a strong foundation.
No, I am from a Catholic school, and sometimes I have seen there are a lot of resistance amongst the people for students going to Catholic school, and like for example during the protests, when some students opt and go, but some students, we all know, nobody talks about it, but we all know that some students are forced to go out during the protest. So for some of the Catholic school, when we were there, we were never allowed to go out. So, you know, there are, I think, a lot of intricacies and details why a Catholic school focus on education and why there is no distraction and how the students come up. So I'm very curious to read your book and see the findings.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, but I wrote that book in the 1980s, and it's a long time ago. And I think the perspective of Catholic schools has also changed over a period of decades, and the educational system itself has changed. Yeah,
now we have a lot other choice coming up.
Yes, and so now as I have seen in Manipur, because people do not want to send their children to schools where they are under the Manipur board. They prefer to send them to schools now which have the CBSE system. There's a very simple reason for that. The markings of the Manipur board are very different to that of the CBSE. Now you score much higher in a CBSE system. So it makes it easier to get into a grade A college once you have finished or you passed out from a CBSE. Now here I find that the Catholic schools are lacking because they have not switched over to the CBSE. You see, they have remained with the Manipur board. So that sometimes puts the students at a disadvantage because their marks are lower when they're trying for admission in institutions outside the state, especially if you're going for a specialized line like engineering or medicine or something like that.
I knew that the marking system or the grading system for the state level are much more lower, in the sense that I guess the teachers are very reluctant to give the full marks. And you're right that it's very difficult for the student to be competitive and, you know, get into admissions and things like that. But I thought with time it would have increased, and I thought now it is in par. So right now, what is the situation?
Well, right now, a number of public schools have sprung up in every nook and corner of not just the valley, but even in some of the hill areas. And people are opting for the CBSE system.
I see.
They prefer the CBSE system to the Manipur board.
Okay, so still there is a difference in
there is a great difference in the grading.
So what about the quality, because you do hear about cheating and you know, questions coming out before and things like that. So how is that whole scenario in Manipur in general?
Well, for the last few years, they have been having flying squads, not just of teachers, but also the various student organizations have been having their own flying squads and trying to bring down you know, these instances of cheating, and I think it has come down to a great extent because now there's a great consciousness about it, you know, and people immediately send messages on the WhatsApp if somebody is, you know, indulging in something like this, which happened in the recent exam. Yes,
right,
yeah.
right.
So since there's more consciousness and the students also know that there's going to be very strict checking, and the invigilators are also given strict instructions about the conduct of the exam, I think the incidence has become less. It is much less in the university. I mean, you don't really come across instances of this kind of thing happening in the university usually, but it's normally seems to be at the school level that these incidences
at the
of
university level, the quality is
well, what happens is that the students are mixed up from different disciplines. So each row has you know, people from a different discipline. So it would be difficult for you know, unfair practices. So that is one way to decrease, but in a board examination of a school, you see the children are all doing the same subject and the same paper, you know, so they are appearing for the same subject on the same day, whereas ours is there are people from all disciplines appearing on the same day, so they can be mixed up in the same hall, you know, not sitting next to each other, you know.
Okay, okay. No, that's nice to know that at least, you know, at the university level you feel you can strongly speak out that, you know, that's very less. Now coming back with all your books and your research, I'm sure, you know, you have seen more about the women's status in Manipur. So if you can share a little bit about the status of women in Manipur.
Well, I think women are always ready to be in the forefront of any protest that takes place. They have that spirit which has come down from the two Nupilans, and they embody that spirit of the two Nupilans, and they are ready to take part in anything which they feel needs to be rectified or where there has been some injustice done. But on the other hand, when they go back home, especially the women vendors in the Imam market, which is so much talked about, you see these women leave their homes early in the morning without having a meal, carrying these headloads of perishable goods to the market, and they go back late at night. And there's really nobody to tend to them. They again have to, you know, carry out all the household responsibilities. It's not shared by anyone. So they are empowered on the outside in the sense that they are mobile. They are earning for themselves. But then when they go back, you know, they are reduced to a position of, you know, serving everybody and everybody waiting for them to come and to do everything which has to be done in the house. And again, in any protest, you will always find that the women are put in the forefront. Yeah, and the men are always very few and at the back, but the women form the main body of the protesters. So when there's a clash between the police and the women, it is the women who become the victims, you know, because they are in the forefront of any protest movement.
So people do see that from the outside world that, you know, women of Manipur are so empowered and they are in the forefront, but behind the scene they are still struggling, trying to keep up the house.
Yes. The duties are not shared. You know, the system of patriarchy is still deeply entrenched in Manipur. I would say it's very difficult to get rid of these patriarchal notions, even though now our youth are very well educated and, you know, they do know that women should be empowered and enjoy certain rights, especially because I think most of the women in Manipur are working.
Right.
And
but the household work is not shared.
Is not shared at all. And I think women are also basically the upholders of the economy of the state. If the women weren't working, I think many of the families and would really collapse without that money, the income that the women are bringing in.
Okay.
Yeah, and I find that many women now earning much more than their husbands in Manipur, or many have really cracked the glass ceiling here in Manipur.
Okay.
Yeah, there are quite a few women. So that also creates, I think, some kind of stress and tension in the house, because obviously when a woman is empowered to that extent financially, her status would be higher, you know. And the husband is bringing in much lesser earnings, so that does create, I think, sometimes stress.
So yes, you do see the trend.
Yes, changing, yeah,
Okay.
because I think women are basically very hard workers, and that is also related to the history of Manipur, because Manipur was always at war with Burma through the centuries while it was an independent kingdom. So the women were always left to manage not only the household but also
the economy
yes,
and
the
taking care of
economy.
the
Yeah,
house
so
and
they was
everything.
holding markets in on the roadside and any convenient spot. So they were always already used to managing the household as well as managing in the public domain. So they were multitaskers right from the beginning. So Manipuri women, in that sense, I think they can take up any kind of profession or any kind of thing, because they are already used to that, and they have inherited this quality from their ancestors.
Right.
Monica, Finding the Voices.
Finding the Voices.
Finding the Voice.
I could see my father. Who came to meet my headmaster because he was unable to pay the fee. I'm sorry.
Because we need such story for people to have faith in the government, in the system, that yes, it's working. And
Let's bring peace in our home state, Manipur.
Who have got the job without bribery, they will do justice to their job, and they will help raise the standard of Manipur.
Me machine kre hai do ai adu paraga tingaugi
Adivine Rako.
time have changed, things have progressed, but women continues to take the stress.
Oh yes, I would say women are forced to be multitaskers, and it's difficult, I would think, for a woman to just go for a holiday by herself or envision some, a day or space out, or some time out for herself. I think that concept hasn't yet come yet, Yeah.
Maybe in our generation I have seen couple, but you're right, on an average, overall, if you see the general crowd, it has not come up yet.
Yes, it hasn't. There are a few groups of women, who have these marubs for traveling, and but that's a very few. And that is again, usually the upper crust of society, not the common people who are really working hard for their living, They don't get a day out, where they can just relax and do what they like, and, so they never have a holiday.
But I think it's the other side also. The woman may not have necessarily seen that you know, you could have a holiday or there could be an alternative life. So I also find that the woman would accept that, okay, this is what I do and this is what I'm supposed to do, and you know.
So yes, you're conditioned to it. You're conditioned to it.
Right.
So it's, I think, now time to, you know, make them sensitive to this. All the people here, that, you know, everybody should have some time off, all the women, whether it's a maid servant or whether it's a vendor in the marketplace or, you know, wherever. Everybody needs some time off. And I also feel that people who are daily wage earners, they should have some kind of insurance and health package given, especially the
which
women.
Is lacking.
Yes,
and
which is
particularly they are hit, especially with so much of frequent bunds. And
yes, and because of the inflation of prices which take place because of these buns. You know, everything rises so quickly, the prices. So it's very difficult for them to manage, maybe, you know, just 1 square meal a day.
So now you have been in Manipur for almost 40 years?
Yes, cross 40 years.
40 years.
Yes.
So in this duration, what has been, like, if you can highlight some of your challenges?
Well, in the beginning it was difficult, I would say, to adjust to the life and culture of the people, because it was not something I was conversant about, and I didn't understand the language. So it took me time to get used to it. But I had the advantage of teaching in a discipline where I could pick up books on the history and culture of almost every community thing. So that in fact challenged me to do a lot of reading on every community. And now I think I have a fairly, you know, good knowledge of the different communities and their aspirations, their background and culture. And I don't feel, I feel that, you know, at some point the society has changed. It has become much more liberal. Of course, that has been with the impact of globalization and modernization, which initially came, of course, with the British. When Manipur came under colonial rule, and because of the Christian missionaries that accompanied the British. So that was the first impact of modernization and globalization that actually took place in Manipur. And once Manipur joined a part of the Indian Union and Manipuris started going out, perspectives have changed, and today many Manipuris are settled not just in different parts of India but across the world. And because the net connects you to everyone, it is a more holistic perspective that the Manipuris are holding today.
So what has been your positive experience which, you know, you can share about Manipur?
Well, I think a positive experience is that, you know, you're accepted as part of the Manipuri community here, you know, and it doesn't matter what you look like, or, you know, you don't have the same features as the people here. But I think if that acceptance is there of someone as a part of the same family, same community, I think that's the most positive.
So people have been very accepting and inviting.
Yes, yeah.
So there is that part. Of course, there are the other parts to it, like in any other society.
Yes, I think that would be in any society, in any country also, you know, where instances of discrimination take place for various reasons, you know.
Okay, so this might be a personal question. You don't have to answer if you don't want to. But since you and your husband come from a diverse background, including the religion and, you know, food and everything, what has been your approach in raising your children, and what worked and what didn't work? Just wanted you to share.
Well, one of the things, of course, we resolved before we got married was the question of religion, because that can divide a family. So we had already decided that we would be married in the Catholic Church and that all the children would be Catholics.
Okay.
So of course all my children are Catholics. So that was not an issue. And my husband had already told his family, you know, my eating habits were different and so on. So since we had a separate kitchen and all, it didn't really create any kind of a problem. And I do wear the traditional dress when I go for occasions like weddings or chakovas and all. But otherwise I feel more comfortable wearing, you know, a non-Manipuri dress for every day. And that was also quite acceptable to them. So I don't think we really had any problems about that. And setting up the house, that was my own initiative. And nobody, you know, told me that, you know, you should do it like this or that or interfere.
So you had your own space.
Yes, yes, I had my own independence.
And you retained your identity.
Yes, very much so.
That's really nice, because being a woman, you know, like
yeah, it's difficult, yeah.
But you did have to be strong. And
oh yes, you have to be strong to, you know, do things like now this house I'm staying in, actually it's me who bought it and built it, you know. So like I think if you have your own independence, you can do things, you know, if you are determined to do it.
No, because sometimes people think that when you get married out of community, you lose your identity and gel into the husbands. Of course, you learn and you trade, and you, like you said, you know, you would wear the ethnic clothes when it is the time and place.
Yeah, okay.
But at the same time, you know, you retained your own identity and did what you had to do.
I think that's also because of my upbringing, because I already had a mixture of, you know, a culture of North India, a Goan and a Portuguese culture, because Goa was ruled by the Portuguese. So I already had that multicultural links, you know, in my upbringing. So, you know, now it's like I feel that I'm a part of the Northeast because I've lived here so long.
Right,
that, yeah, you know.
With your research, you probably will be knowing more than me.
So actually, I feel quite at home in the Northeast. Even if I travel to any other state in the Northeast, I don't really have any problems.
So you don't regret coming 40 years before?
No. In fact, I've had a lot of opportunities in Manipur, surprisingly, to travel to various parts of the world for various seminars and conferences or whatever. And maybe if I'd lived somewhere else, I may not have had the same opportunities, you know.
Really nice.
Yeah, so that is again has been a good...
because you didn't feel compromised on your career. You had a good career which you're happy about. So now that you're retired, what do you look forward to? What are you planning?
Oh, well, I don't plan to actually hang up my boots. I'm hoping to start teaching English in one of the IAS academies here. Yeah, actually I'm already associated with them because I used to do the grooming for the interviews for the civil services.
No, because I knew that you are not the person who would be retired and sitting at home.
So I have already actually, I had been teaching earlier, taking classes in history. Then I shifted to grooming them for interviews for the civil services. And now I'm thinking of, you know, I've already been in contact with one of them and hoping to start teach English there. And I hope to actually stay on as a guest faculty also in the university for some time. And at the same time, you know, work on corrections of research papers and editing books and dissertations and theses, especially of people who are not very proficient in the English language, you know, doing the corrections and so on.
So it looks like your plate is already full.
Well, I hope, because I need to be active.
Right. So I don't know how much you know about Finding the Voices, but Finding the Voices is a very small effort from my side to connect all of us, get to know more people, get to know what each of us are doing. And I believe that our story, each of your story and other people who are sharing, will connect and bring a change to our perspective, both to the people in Manipur as well as to people outside of Manipur. So of what you know, if you can share a little feedback, how we can improve, your advice or anything.
Well, I think it was a very innovative scheme of yours. And of course, yes, I knew about it because since you interviewed my daughter right in the beginning. So yes, I became conversant with this. And I think it's a very good idea because today we are living in a globalized village, and it's really very important to know about everyone's story. Everyone has a story to tell, and there's something that you can learn from everyone and take back and, you know, improve the quality of your own life. So I think what you're doing is a tremendous job, and I really wish you success and hope it can expand into wider horizons where more channels and more people come into it and also come and share their stories.
Thank you. But to make the program complete, it's people like you who have very welcomingly accepted my invitation, even at a very short notice. So thank you so much for sharing your story, and good luck, and I look forward to reading all your books because I'm very interested in all the topics which you have said, and I was like, okay, wow. And good luck for more other books coming up, and good luck on your retirement jobs.
Thank you so much, Monica.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Please read Finding the Voices.